The morning started the way most mornings did in the Calloway house, with Oliver winning and Richard not entirely sure how it happened. They were 12 minutes into the drive to Harborview Elementary when Oliver leaned forward from the back seat and studied his father, with the focused expression of a scientist examining something mildly puzzling. "Your collar is uneven," Oliver said. Richard glanced down immediately. Running his fingers along the edge of his shirt, everything felt perfectly aligned. He checked the buttons. All correct. He checked the seam at the shoulder. "Completely fine. It is not," Richard said. "You looked, though," Oliver said, leaning back with satisfaction. "That is all I wanted." Richard opened his mouth to respond, and his phone buzzed from the dashboard. The name Derek flashed across the screen. He answered on the car speakers. "Mr. Calloway," Derek began, and his voice had that particular strained quality it got when the world was apparently ending in multiple places at once. "The Chicago office is asking about the quarterly figures. The investors from Portland have called twice already this morning. Your 10 o'clock wants to move to 9:45, and the catering company wants to know if you prefer the salmon or the beef for Thursday. Figures go out by 11. Portland can wait until after lunch. 10 o'clock stays at 10. And tell them beef," Richard said. "Anything else?" "No." There was a pause. "Are you sure? Because you sound calm, and that worries me more than when you sound stressed." Richard ended the call. Oliver was watching him from the back seat with an expression of quiet evaluation. "Derek worries too much," the boy said. "Derek is paid to worry," Richard replied. "You should pay him more then, because he is very good at it." The car pulled into the parking lot of Harborview Elementary at 7:54. The school sat close to the Charleston Harbor, a clean brick building with wide windows and a garden along the front path that was kept with more love than anything Richard owned. He always parked in the back corner, an old habit that had nothing to do with humility and everything to do with avoiding the cluster of parents who recognized him. He shut off the engine and turned around. Oliver already had his backpack over one shoulder and was looking at the school building the way generals look at battlefields before a campaign. "How are you feeling about today?" Richard asked. Oliver thought about this seriously for a moment. "Like a very smart fish being placed in a tank with ordinary fish," he said. "I will be fine." "The fish will be confused," Richard laughed. He reached out to ruffle Oliver's carefully arranged hair, and Oliver pulled back with the speed and dignity of someone protecting something sacred. "Dad, I have structure," Oliver said. "Sorry. I forgot." "You always forget." "It is fine. I forgive you." Oliver opened the door and stepped out. He walked 3 paces, then turned back the way he always did, because Oliver never left without a closing remark. "Dad, try not to acquire anything before noon. Last time you bought a company before lunch and everyone at school heard about it, so that was a small acquisition. $60 million is not small. It is relative." Oliver waved in a way that suggested he disagreed completely and ran toward the school entrance, disappearing into the bright confusion of colorful backpacks and children who had far too much energy for 8 in the morning. Richard sat in the car for another 30 seconds watching the gate even after Oliver had gone through it. He did this every morning. He was not sure why exactly, except that the 30 seconds felt necessary in a way he could not fully explain then. He started the engine and drove to the office. Headquarters of Calloway Digital occupied 2 floors of a glass building overlooking the harbor. Richard arrived at 8:22, moved through 6 meetings before noon, sent 14 emails, rejected a logo redesign that would have turned the company mascot into something resembling a confused bird, and still managed to review the Chicago figures before 11 at 12:07. While he was sitting by the window watching a sailboat cross the harbor, his phone buzzed with a message from Harborview Elementary. It read, "We request the presence of Oliver, Calloway's guardian, at your earliest convenience. Please come to room 8. The matter concerns Oliver's classroom behavior today." Richard read the message. Twice. First day of the new semester and already a summons. His son was genuinely extraordinary, and this was not always a compliment. He told Derek he would be back within the hour, grabbed his keys, drove back toward the school. The hallway smelled like fresh paint and something vaguely like oranges. The particular combination that existed in elementary schools everywhere and transported any adult immediately back to being 7 years old and uncertain about long division. Richard walked slowly, reading the door numbers. Room 5. Room 6. Room 7. Room 8. The door was half open. He pushed it gently, and then the world stopped. The woman standing beside the teacher's desk was holding a stack of papers against her chest and speaking quietly to herself while reviewing something in a folder. Her hair was a warm brown, pulled loosely back, and she was wearing a pale green blouse with a small pin shaped like a book near the collar. She had not looked up yet, but Richard did not need her to look up. He would have recognized that profile in any room in any city, on any continent on Earth. Emma Hartley, the name arrived in his mind the way a wave arrives after being built up across a very long ocean. Emma Hartley, who grew up 3 streets away from him in Boston. Emma Hartley, who used to read paperback novels on the steps of the public library in summer and argue with him about which ice cream flavor was scientifically superior. Emma Hartley, his first real friend, before she became something that mattered even more than that. And then the girl he lost at 17 when his family relocated and the world moved on, without asking either of them. 14 years. 14 years since he had last seen that face, and now she was standing in his son's classroom holding a butterfly-covered folder and looking exactly like herself. Which was to say, looking more beautiful than any reasonable memory had managed to preserve his right foot. At this precise moment, decided to forget how the human body operated. Richard stumbled on the threshold. His hand shot out and caught the edge of the nearest desk. The desk was small, built for a 9-year-old, and it tipped sideways with a sharp scraping sound. A pencil rolled off. A water bottle cap hit the floor and spun. Richard righted himself at the last second, breathing too fast. His face doing something warm and uncontrolled. Emma looked up. The color left her face and then rushed back in all at once. "Richard," she said. The word came out like something fragile, like she was surprised it was even a real word. Richard's brain sent instructions to his throat. His throat went completely offline. "You hear, teaching," he said. "Oliver, room 8. Emma blinked for words. No grammar. No meaning. From a man who had once spent 45 minutes talking a room full of skeptical investors into backing a product they had never believed in. Emma pressed the folder tighter against her chest. Her lips moved slightly. Richard saw her say something to herself without meaning to say it out loud. "Stop looking like that," she whispered. "He is a parent. He is just a parent. He is just Richard. The same Richard. The one who used to be terrible at skating and pretended not to be. Stop." She had not said it quietly enough. Richard's eyebrows lifted. Emma's eyes widened, and from the front row of the classroom, a familiar voice broke through the entire scene like a cheerful fire alarm. "This is incredible," Oliver said. "This is actually the best thing I have ever seen in person." Richard turned his head so fast, his neck made a sound. Oliver was sitting at his desk with both elbows on the table and his chin resting in his palms, watching with the transfixed expression of someone witnessing a solar eclipse. "Oliver, how long have you been sitting there? Since before you came in?" "I saw everything. The stumble, the desk, the face you made, and then the thing she said about skating." Oliver turned to Emma. "He's still bad at skating, for the record. He fell twice last winter and blamed the ice." Emma made a sound that was almost a laugh and pressed her hand over her mouth. Richard looked at her. She looked at him. The room felt smaller than it had 30 seconds ago and also somehow warmer. "So," Oliver said, stretching the word in a very deliberate way, "you two know each other." It was not a question. Oliver woke up the next morning, already smiling. And Richard had learned over 9 years of fatherhood that this particular smile meant something was being planned at a level of complexity. That would make his corporate strategists feel inadequate. Richard was standing in the kitchen at 6:40 making coffee and telling himself firmly that he was not thinking about Emma Hartley. He was not thinking about the way she had looked standing in that classroom. He was not thinking about the sound of his name in her voice. Low and surprised, like something she had kept stored away and not expected to use. He was not thinking about any of it. He was failing completely. "Good morning," Oliver said, appearing at the bottom of the stairs with his backpack already on, his hair arranged with its usual architectural precision, and the expression of a chess player who had already mapped out the next 12 moves. "You are up early," Richard said. "I am motivated," Oliver said. "Education is important." Richard studied him over the rim of his coffee mug. "You have never once described education as important. You described it last semester as a system designed by adults who forgot what it felt like to already know things." "People grow," Oliver said simply. He picked an apple from the bowl on the counter, took a bite, and his eyes dropped to the kitchen counter. Then he stopped chewing. "Dad?" Oliver said. "Yes. Why is that on the counter?" Richard looked. Sitting beside the fruit bowl, pink and glittery, and featuring a small unicorn with an expression of serene confidence, was a pencil case. Emily's pencil case, which had flown off the desk during Richard's spectacular entrance into room 8 the previous afternoon, in which Richard had apparently carried all the way to the parking lot and then driven home with, pressed against his chest like some kind of shiny emotional shield. "I was going to drop it at the front office today," Richard said. Oliver set down the apple with the gravity of someone setting down a verdict. "Emily has been worried about that pencil case since yesterday afternoon. The unicorn's name is Clover. Emily talks to Clover during quiet reading time. She has been talking to that pencil case every day since September. The pencil case has a name. Clover is the unicorn printed on the pencil case. The pencil case itself is called Starshine. Emily named them separately." Richard sat down. "There are 2 names. Emily is thorough. She also left me a voice message last night asking if I had seen Starshine because she could not sleep." Oliver looked at his father with the patience of someone explaining gravity to a person who had just floated away. "Dad, you have to return it personally. I will leave it at the front office, and they will give it to Emily before class. The office opens at 8:15. Class starts at 8. Emily will spend 15 minutes believing she has lost Starshine forever. Do you understand what 15 minutes of grief feels like when you are 9 years old and your pencil case is your best non-human companion?" "Oliver, I am just explaining the emotional landscape. I will ask the office to leave her a note." "A note does not replace Clover and Starshine, Dad." Richard took a long breath. Oliver was looking at him with enormous, calm brown eyes that contained absolutely no deception whatsoever. Been an enormous amount of it. Richard had negotiated with company boards with difficult investors, with technology partners who wanted everything and offered nothing, and he had never once felt as completely outmaneuvered as he did in his own kitchen at 6:45 in the morning. Richard said. Oliver blinked with the wide innocence of a child who had never once in his life wanted anything at all. "I want Emily to have her pencil case. That is all I want. The fact that Miss Hartley's classroom is in room 8 is simply the geography of the school. I did not design the building." Richard grabbed the pencil case and his car keys. "Get your backpack," he said. "We are leaving." Oliver smiled the smile. The drive to school was quiet for approximately 90 seconds before Oliver began speaking again in the casual tone he used when delivering information he had prepared in advance. "Dad, did you know Miss Hartley has a small vase of yellow flowers on her desk? She brought them herself. It means she likes making spaces feel like home." "Oliver, I am sharing context. Context helps people understand situations." Silence. "She arrived in Charleston 4 months ago from Boston. Sophie's older sister takes yoga on Thursdays, and she saw Miss Hartley at the coffee shop near the studio twice. She always orders an Americano with oat milk. You are running a surveillance operation on my son's teacher. I am gathering information the way curious people do. It is intellectual. Sophie helps because she finds people interesting. We are both very intellectually developed for our age. More silence. Also, Oliver added, Sophie says Miss Hartley does not wear a ring. Richard gripped the steering wheel tighter and said nothing. They arrived at the parking lot at 7:51. Oliver got out, walked 3 steps, and turned back. You forgot to give me the pencil case? Richard held it out through the open window. Oliver did not move. I told you. Emily needs to receive it from the person who picked it up. Returning something through a middleman creates confusion about accountability. You taught me that accountability matters. I taught you accountability in the context of business decisions. The principle transfers. Also, Emily is sensitive. If the wrong person brings Starshine back, she will not know who to thank, and gratitude undelivered causes emotional imbalance. I read that. Where did you read that? Somewhere educational? I do not remember exactly. Knowledge accumulates. Oliver adjusted his backpack strap. I will see you inside, Dad. Take your time. Do not rush. There is no hurry at all. He turned and walked calmly toward the school gate without looking back, which meant he had won and he knew it. Richard sat in the car for 2 full minutes, holding a pink glittery pencil case. Then he got out and walked to the school. Room 5. Room 6. Room 7. Room 8. Through the small window in the door, he could see Emma at the front of the room writing something on the whiteboard. 20 children sat at their desks with varying degrees of attention. Oliver was in the front row, facing the door, watching Richard through the glass with the calm focus of an air traffic controller. Richard knocked. All 20 heads turned at once. Emma stopped writing and walked to the door, opening it slightly. She was wearing a soft blue cardigan today, and she had tucked a pen behind her ear, and she looked, in the simple language of honest observation, wonderful. Mr. Calloway, she said. There was a flicker of something in her eyes before the professional composure locked back into place. Good morning. Sorry to interrupt. Oliver left something behind yesterday. He raised the pencil case. From somewhere in the back of the room, a small voice shouted, Starshine, with the pure relief of someone reunited with something precious. Emma looked at the pencil case. She looked at Richard. She looked at Oliver, who was studying the ceiling with great scientific focus. One moment, class, Emma said. She stepped into the hallway and pulled the door nearly closed behind her. She crossed her arms gently. You came in person. Oliver felt strongly about the handoff. Oliver refused to take it himself. He had a very detailed explanation about accountability and gratitude and emotional balance in 9-year-olds. Emma pressed her lips together. He set you up, completely. I was aware of it the entire time and still ended up here. That might be the most honest thing anyone has said in this hallway all week. She was biting back a smile now and not quite succeeding. Richard, you could have just left it at the office. I know. But you came anyway. Emily needed her pencil case. He paused. And I wanted to see you. That is also true, and I am aware it sounds ridiculous. The smile broke through. Emma turned her face slightly to the side as if redirecting it somewhere else, then looked back. Stop, she said quietly to herself. You are doing it again, Richard said. I know. It happens when I am not paying attention. It is a very inconvenient habit. I think it is the most charming thing I have seen in years. You always said that, because it was always true. The door opened 2 inches. Oliver's face appeared in the gap. Miss Hartley, Emily wants to know if Starshine is okay. She says Clover looks worried. Emma turned her head toward the classroom. Tell Emily Starshine is perfectly fine and will be back in 30 seconds. I will. Also, Dad, thank you for being responsible and overcoming. Your nervousness to come here today, despite knowing it meant seeing Miss Hartley again. I was not nervous. You checked your hair in the car mirror 4 times. I counted. Oliver let the door close. Emma looked at Richard. Richard looked at Emma. He counted, Emma said. He counts everything. He has since he was 4. I believe it. She held out her hand for the pencil case. When Richard passed it to her, their fingers touched for exactly 1 second. which was 1 second longer than necessary and somehow felt like an entire conversation. "Emma," Richard said. "Tch," she said back. The name in her voice again, the same as yesterday. The same as 14 years ago on a Boston evening when the sky was orange and they were standing on a sidewalk not wanting to say goodbye. "I would like to talk to you properly," he said. "Without pencil cases or invented reasons. Just us." Emma was quiet for a moment. Inside the classroom, someone dropped something, and there was a brief scramble, and then laughter. The ordinary world going on around an extraordinary pause. "I finish at 3:30, she said carefully. "That is not an invitation. That is a fact about my schedule. What you do with a fact is entirely your decision." Richard felt something loosen in his chest. "That sounds like an invitation wearing a very thin disguise. It sounds like a fact. Good night, Mr. Calloway." She went back into the classroom. He walked back to the car with the hollow sensation of someone who had just been given a gift. He had not been expecting, and was not entirely sure how to hold yet. His phone buzzed. A message from Oliver. "Dad, you are smiling at the parking lot. 3 parents saw. Also, I told Emily you returned Starshine personally, and she cried a little from happiness. You are a hero. Also 3:30 today. Do not be late. I have arranged to go to Sophie's after school so you have privacy. You are welcome." Richard stopped walking. A second message arrived. "This is the best semester of my entire academic life. Phase 2 begins tomorrow." He stared at the screen. His 9-year-old son had numbered phases. 3. 30 came with a particular cruelty of time that moves slowly when you are waiting for something. Richard spent the afternoon at the office in a state of partial functioning. He answered emails. He approved 2 things that probably needed more thought. He sent Derek to get coffee twice, even though the office had perfectly good coffee, because he needed Derek to leave the room so he could sit quietly and think about nothing, which was not working because he kept thinking about everything. At 3:15 he was parked outside Harborview Elementary, feeling like a person who had forgotten how to be a person. The bell rang at 3:25. Children streamed out in their bright, chaotic wave. Richard scanned the crowd and found Oliver near the front door talking to Emma and laughing about something. He got out of the car. Oliver saw him first. "Dad is here," the boy announced, not particularly quietly. He parked far away, which means he was nervous about being seen arriving too early. "I parked far away because there were no closer spaces," Richard said. "There are 4 empty spaces near the gate. I counted them on the way out." Emma looked down briefly to compose herself. "Sorry," Richard said to her. "Do not apologize," she replied. "He is the best part of the day." Oliver raised his hand. "Thank you. I work hard at it." They stood together in the thinning afternoon while parents collected children and teachers, headed toward their cars, and the day settled into its quieter shape. For a moment, all 3 of them were simply standing there, and it did not feel strange. It felt like something that had always been possible and had only just now arrived. "Ah, Miss Hartley," Oliver said eventually, in the particular tone he used when he was about to say something devastatingly accurate. "Emily told me the other moms have a group message, and Dad is mentioned in it quite a lot." Emma glanced at Richard. "Is that right? Apparently he is described as the dedicated widowed dad who keeps showing up with different excuses." Oliver looked at his father. They are not wrong. They are just missing the full picture. A quiet passed between the 3 of them. Emma's expression softened into something that was not the professional warmth of a teacher, but something older and more personal than that. "All right," Oliver said, with the satisfied efficiency of a meeting being properly concluded. "I am going to Sophie's. I have arranged this deliberately, so you 2 can finish conversations that keep getting interrupted." He picked up his bag. "Dad, you have until 6. Do not waste it discussing the weather, or work, or anything that does not matter. You both know what matters." He looked at Emma. "Miss Hartley, he is much better than he appears when he is nervous. In case that helps," he waved at both of them and walked calmly to where Sophie's mother was waiting by the gate. Richard watched him go. 12 steps, Emma said quietly. Sorry. He mentioned to Sophie's mother last week that he has a 12-step plan. Sophie told me. She looked at Richard with something warm in her expression. I think we are somewhere in the middle of it, Richard laughed. Real and unguarded, and Emma laughed too. And they stood there by the school gate in the late afternoon sun, laughing at a 9-year-old's master plan, and it felt like something releasing. Friday, Richard said when the laughter settled. Dinner? Just us. Properly. No lunchboxes, no pencil cases, no forgotten anything. Emma looked at him for a moment. The afternoon light was doing something. Golden across the harbor behind the school, and the breeze was light, and the world felt. In that precise moment, like it was holding very still. Friday, she said. Yes. Richard felt his entire chest rearrange itself in a good way. 7 o'clock. I will pick you up. I will be ready. She smiled, and it was the smile he remembered from Boston summers, open and unguarded and entirely itself. And Richard. Next time you need an excuse to visit, try a turkey sandwich. Oliver likes turkey. She walked back toward the school entrance. Richard stood at the gate until she disappeared through the door. Then he got out his phone. A message from Oliver was already waiting. I am watching from Sophie's car window. You are smiling, and your ears are red. Both ears. Phase 3 is complete. Friday is going to change everything. Also, Sophie says hi. Richard looked down the empty road, the harbor glittering beyond the school roof. The evening coming in slow and warm. Friday, he thought. And for the first time in a long time. Something that had gone quiet inside him started, carefully and with great feeling. To wake back up, the morning of the science fair arrived with the kind of bright, Charleston sunshine that felt personally encouraging, as if the weather had been briefed on the situation and had decided to cooperate fully. Richard was in the kitchen. At 6:30 making eggs when Oliver came downstairs. Wearing a small navy bow tie over his school shirt, Richard looked at the bow tie. Oliver looked back at Richard with complete composure. It is a science fair, Richard said. It is a presentation, Oliver corrected. Presentations deserve appropriate attire. You taught me that. I taught you that in the context of business. Meetings, the principal transfers. Sat down and accepted his plate of eggs with the dignified calm of someone who had already won every argument he intended to have today. He ate 3 bites, then looked up. Dad, tonight is Friday. I am aware. The restaurant is booked for 7. I confirmed this yesterday by calling on your behalf. Richard set down his fork. You called the restaurant? I wanted to verify the reservation. You looked distracted, and I did not trust the details to chance. Oliver straightened the bow tie. I requested the corner table with the harbor view, the one near the window with the small lamp. It is the best table. I looked at the restaurant's layout online. You researched the table layout. I researched everything. The menu, the lighting, the average noise level on Friday evenings, the parking situation nearby. Sophie helped with some of the logistics. She is very organized for someone who claims not to care about details. Richard looked at his son for a long moment. Oliver, what exactly is this science fair project you have been working on? Oliver considered this question with great care and then smiled in the particular way that meant the answer was going to be something Richard was completely unprepared for. It is a study in human behavior, he said. Very scientific, very data-driven. You will see it today, and I think you will find it very interesting. That is not reassuring. It is not meant to be reassuring. It is meant to be accurate. Oliver finished his eggs, picked up his backpack, and stood. Dad, one more thing? Yes, tonight matters. Not because of the restaurant or the table or the harbor view. It matters because you have been walking around for 3 years like someone who forgot they were allowed to be happy. And you are. You are allowed. Oliver said this with the directness of a child who had not yet learned to soften important truths, which meant it landed exactly where it needed to land. Mom always said happiness was not something that ran out. She said the more you used it, the more there was. Richard was quiet for a moment. The kitchen felt very still. "When did she say that to you?" he asked. "The last Christmas," Oliver said simply. "She told me to remember it for you in case you forgot." He picked up his apple and walked to the door. "I have been remembering it. I am telling you now because tonight is the right time." He opened the door and looked back. "Also, please do not wear the gray shirt. It is too formal. Sophie has already approved the blue one. Emma is wearing blue tonight as well, so you will coordinate without trying, which is very good because trying too hard is obvious, and obvious is not charming." "How do you know what Emma's wearing tonight?"